When you hear the word colonial, you probably think of the symmetrical Georgian or the very refined federal home. However, there is another colonial era home called the Dutch Colonial, which is often overlooked. In this video, I'm going to be focusing purely on the Dutch Colonials. I'll explain how they came to be and why they fell out of favour. I'll discuss the exterior identifying feature, the interior identifying features, and stick around till the end because there's a pop quiz to test your knowledge. Dutch colonials date back to the 1600s and early 1700s, when Dutch settlers from the Netherlands settled in areas which are now New York, New Jersey, and parts of Pennsylvania. Now, unlike the English colonists who built very rigid, symmetrical colonial homes, the Dutch had their own European style and built uniquely according to their own building traditions, adapting to the climate and the materials available to them in the areas where they landed. Of all the colonial styles, the Dutch colonial was never as popular, and there are a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, there just weren't as many Dutch settlers as there were English, and consequently there weren't as many skilled craftsmen with the ability to build the unique style of Dutch home. Secondly, as the years went by and tastes evolved, people just preferred the very symmetrical, balanced, refined Georgian and federal homes, which pushed the Dutch colonial out of favour. As we got into the 1800s and America expanded westward, the Dutch colonials just didn't translate well out of the northeast. Dutch colonials enjoyed a brief resurgence during the colonial revival movement of the early 1900s, but ultimately they remained a regional niche architectural style rather than becoming a dominant force in American architecture. So now let's check out the exterior telltale signs of how you can identify a Dutch colonial home. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you're finding this information useful. Every element of a Dutch colonial is about adaptability, practicality, and handcrafted charm. And the number one defining exterior feature of a Dutch colonial is the Gambrel roof. Now, this is a very deep, double-pitched roof line, which allowed a lot more space on the interior of the home on the upstairs than traditionally pitched roofs would have done. This roof is also sometimes called a barn-style roof. The second exterior feature of a Dutch colonial goes hand in hand with the roof line, and that is the flared or overhanging eaves, which extend way beyond the house's walls. This would give a very picturesque and cottage-like appearance to the house. The third exterior feature is the brick or stone construction, reflecting the building traditions of the Netherlands. Now, the early Dutch colonials in the 1600s would have been made with brick or stone, but the Dutch colonials built within the colonial revival movement of the early 1900s would have been typically made with a wooden siding, whether that's cedar shingle or a clapboard. The fourth feature of Dutch colonials is the single stone or brick fireplace, which was typically centred, except when it wasn't. So Dutch colonials weren't quite as strict as to the placement of the chimney. The earlier versions tended to have a central chimney because the single fireplace would heat all the other rooms. Later versions, the interior floor plan became more asymmetrical. So in those versions, the chimney was off to the side. The deep gambrel roof on Dutch colonials allows for the fifth feature, which are dormer windows. Now, these would be placed into the roof line to allow a lot more natural light and ventilation into the upper living area to make it more livable and more pleasant. The sixth exterior feature is my absolute favourite, and that is a Dutch door. Now, this was the front door to the house, split horizontally in the middle, allowing the top and bottom halves to both open independently of each other. This had a practical purpose because by opening the top, you would allow ventilation into the house, but keeping the bottom closed, you would keep out the animals and the livestock. To this day, Dutch doors are loved rustic symbols, which kind of define the Dutch colonial themes of warmth and practicality. Stepping inside a Dutch colonial, you'll notice the same themes of functionality, warmth, and craftsmanship, where every detail was designed with practical living in mind. So the first thing you'll notice is the floor plan. So this was either a centre hall floor plan, same as the other colonials, where the front door would enter into a main entrance and you'd have the formal rooms on either side. But what later became popular with Dutch colonials is a side hall floor plan, because this maximised the interior space. The second interior feature were the exposed wooden beams. Now, these were typically made from heavy oak or chestnut, and they were left visible as part of the rustic interior charm. The third feature were the low ceilings. Now, these retained the warmth during the cold winters by reducing the volume of air that needed to be heated up. Now, this is in stark contrast to the Federal and Georgian Colonials, their 10 to 12 foot ceilings with all the grandeur. The Dutch Colonials had a very cosy, intimate feel with their low ceilings. The fourth interior feature were fireplaces. Now, typically Dutch Colonials just had one large central fireplace, which was sturdy and unembellished. Remember, this home is all about practicality and not design. In some later Dutch Colonials, the fireplace incorporated wide hearths and built-in ovens, so you had that dual purpose heating and cooking at the same time. The fifth interior feature were wide plank hardwood floors. Now, these were typically made of pine or oak, sourced locally and left unfinished to showcase the natural grain. The final interior feature, which is also a departure from the other colonials, are the casement windows. So in contrast to the Federal and Georgian double hung windows that would kind of slide up and down, these were casement windows which were hinged and would swing out. But again, we do see the multi-panes, which we saw in the other colonials. Now, multi-pane windows were a necessity of the time because large sheets of glass were too expensive, so they got smaller ones and stuck them together. Okay, so by now you should be an expert on Dutch Colonials, but let's put it to the test. So I'm going to ask 4 questions. You're going to have a few seconds to shout out your answer and make sure you do, and then I will reveal the correct answer. So you ready? Question number 1. What is the most defining feature of a Dutch colonial home? A gambrel roof, B, a side gabled roof, or C, a flat roof? And the correct answer is A, the double pitched gambrel roof is definitely the most defining feature of a Dutch colonial. Question 2. Why were Dutch doors originally designed to split into 2 halves? A, to keep livestock and dirt out while allowing airflow. B, to save money on wood. Or C, as a purely decorative element? And the correct answer is A, to keep livestock and dirt out while allowing airflow. Of course, you should know by now with Dutch colonials that everything was designed with practicality in mind. Question 3. Which interior feature is most common in early Dutch colonial homes? A, high vaulted ceilings. B, exposed wooden ceiling beams, or C, a grand spiral staircase? And the correct answer is B, exposed wooden ceiling beams. And finally, question 4. Why did Dutch colonial homes fall out of favour? A, the materials became too expensive. B, the style was overshadowed by Georgian and Federal colonials. Or C, there was a shortage of skilled Dutch craftsmen. And the correct answer is B, the style was overshadowed by Georgian and Federal colonials. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out all my other videos on the colonial architectural styles, and I'll see you next time.